Hey, you are listening to In the Books, a period drama podcast hosted by the following fabulous fangirls. I'm Michelle. You can find me at Musings on Instagram and rarely Twitter.
I'm Rita. I'm at Annoying Rita on Instagram, and I haven't gone on Twitter in months. And welcome to the second episode in our ongoing series on All the Light We Cannot See, the new Netflix miniseries based on Anthony Doerr's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel of the same name. This week, we're going to be discussing the second episode of this 4-part series. So, without further ado, let's begin with an overly lengthy recap. Yay!
The episode begins with a bang, a literal one. Von Rumpel's gun fires into the air. We told you, he can't shoot her. She's the only person who can help him. He knows this because he has apparently spoken to her father. Cue a flashback to 1940 where Marie and her father are carrying suitcases through a packed Champs-Élysées. Her father explains that Germany has invaded Paris and they are forced to stop and wait as the Nazis march. Nazis? The Nazis march down the avenue waving swastika flags.
To be fair, Nazis sounds a lot friendlier. They sound like
nice
nice
it sure
guys.
does.
Hi, Nazis.
Marie and her father then head to the Museum National d'Histoire Naturelle, where, sorry I butchered that, but I gave it my
Museum
best.
Museum National d'Histoire.
Histoire. Where they help hide all the cool shit from the Nazis. The plan is to stuff a bunch of expensive stones in the head of a T-Rex being sent to a museum in Geneva for safety. Among the jewels, there may or may not be the Sea of Flames. Daniel, her father, removes it from its hiding spot, but the location of the jewel is purposefully I hate this word. Is hidden.
Sorry, obfuscated.
It's hidden from us. And when we cut back to the cave where Von Rumpel is hearing this story, he looks unimpressed. He accuses her of lying to him and attempts to almost drown her. After a few dunks in the water, Von Rumpel tells Marie that she is one of the many victims of the curse, her blindness brought about by her father's possession of the stone. Marie grabs a hold of a rock and smacks him in the head and flees to the relative safety of the town.
I say relative, there's still a whole bombing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Marie Laure runs through the streets, remember, still blind, don't know how she's doing this, until she comes across the strange distorted sounds of a bombed out carousel. She hears footsteps and keeps running. Those footsteps belong to Werner, who carries Schmidt's very dead body over his head. He's got superhuman strength now, and dumps it on the blazing carousel. Werner is washing the blood off the floor when Captain Muller, I looked up his name, everybody, because, they never mention it. He wanders in. He notices that someone is transmitting and listens to Marie Laure's broadcast of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He puts 2 and 2 together and works out that Werner killed Schmidt in order to protect whoever is broadcasting. He pulls a gun. He pulls a gun on Werner and asks him to explain. But instead of being a spy, it turns out Werner is just a bit of a romantic.
Aww.
Muller decides not to shoot him, as he is the only radio operator left in Saint-Malo. Yeah, he killed the other one. Instead, he's going to make him find the girl and have Werner shoot him himself as punishment. Muller laments that Werner was considered a boy genius. How did it come to this, he asks. Luckily for him, we get another flashback. So, back in 1940, Werner is at the orphanage when a Captain Rudolf Seidler? I'm going to go with Seidler. Rudolf Seidler arrives. He announces that Germany has just taken possession of Paris that very morning. See? Mm-hmm. See what they did there? Werner and his sister gasp in shock. The captain notices a French magazine that Frau Elena has been reading and burns it.
Of course.
He then announces he is here for Werner. Word on the street is that the child is half boy, half radio transmitter, and he needs someone to fix a radio for him.
Seidler takes Werner to his home, stolen from a Jewish family, and gifted to him by the Führer. They find Seidler's wife in the living room, reading the same French magazine as Frau Elena. As always, rules do not apply to the rich and powerful. Seidler orders Werner to fix his radio for him or die. Werner manages to fix the connection, and they listen to the news about the invasion of Paris. We then cut to Paris. Maria and her father arrive at the train station to find a commotion and the gates locked. German troops stomp in menacingly and start hanging more swastikas around the place, and everyone begins to leave. Maria and her father begin a long trudge out of the city in a caravan of refugees. Her father notices Marie struggling with one of her bags and offers to carry it. When he picks it up, he realizes she is carrying her radio and wants to leave it. Marie Laure insists that she needs to listen to the professor's broadcasts. More than ever, she needs someone who can explain to her what is happening. She worries that because of her blindness, she is a target for Nazi hatred, and he promises he will do everything in his power to keep her unseen by them. He helps her carry the radio.
That night, Marie and her father take shelter in a barn. They pretend they are at a 5-star hotel as they eat their sandwiches. The joke unravels when Marie worries they should save their food. They don't know where they are going to get their next meal again. Her father announces that they're going to Saint-Malo, and then they put on her radio and listen to the professor. Over in Germany, Werner lies in bed listening to the very same broadcast. His sister yanks off his headphones and tells him off for still listening to illegal broadcasts. She worries that he will be killed and she will be left all alone in the world. Werner is contrite, and the two make peace. She even offers to give him some chocolate. But they're interrupted by a panicking-looking Frau Elena, who tells them the soldiers have come looking for Werner. Outside the orphanage, Captain Seidler waits in an idling car while Frau Elena and Jutta say goodbye to Werner. Jutta tells him that he's not to let them change who he is. He is to stay the same in his heart. Werner promises his sister he won't and slides into the car. Seidler tells him that he has passed his test and that he's taking him to a place where they will turn the boy into a man and the man into a soldier.
Back in France, Marie's father holds the sea of flames to the light of the fire he has built in the barn. Beside him, Marie sleeps peacefully. In the corner of the barn, he spots an old car. The next morning, he pushes us out of the barn and down a hill. Marie is inside of the car, following his steering instructions and yelling back things like, "What's a clutch?" But finally, the engine turns over and he jumps in to take over the wheel. She asks if they steal cars now. He tells her they are liberating it for France. Over in Germany, Werner arrives at the National Political Institute of Education, a truly menacing-looking institute filled with Hitler Youth superstars. Werner is dragged for a medical, and the first question asked is, "What is he?" Seidler replies that he is a boy and is scoffed at. This is Nazi Central, and they are obsessed with the concept of race. The fact that he is an orphan with an unknown father is problematic, despite his mother being German Aryan, and so he must have a very humiliating examination where every part of his body will be measured to calculate his racial purity. Following the inspection, the doctor announces that, "Good news, you're not a Jew." So he's given the honor of staying at the school. Following a close-up at a creepy Hitler Youth mural, Werner is introduced to his new bunkmates. It involves a lot of yelling, and when he goes to pick up his uniform, one of the other boys knees him in the face. his blood streaming down his nose as the boy in charge screams things like, "You will forgo comforts and live by duty alone. You will eat country and breathe nation." Fun! He tells the rest of the boys in the room to give him the traditional welcome, which is as scary as it sounds.
Werner runs out of the dormitories and straight into the woods while the other boys chase him down. The frantic running becomes slow motion. We hear a voiceover of a banal letter home Werner has written. Quote, "There are lots of forests and open country, and the air is very clean. The other boys seem okay, though mostly they are bigger than me." End quote. The speed picks back up again as Werner is tackled to the ground and the other boys begin brutally beating and kicking him. Eventually, an officer has to intervene to get them off of Werner. He limps back to his room covered in his own blood. We then cut to St. Malo, 4 years later. Werner is still being held at gunpoint by Muller, but this time he and his radio are in a jeep. Why haven't they tried this before? Anyway, Muller tells him that not only is he in danger, but that he knows about his sister, Jutta, and her life is at stake too now.
Oh, God.
Werner tunes in to Marie's broadcast, giving the driver instructions. Turn right here, etc. He starts to cry as he listens to Marie's message for her father. The jeep arrives at Marie's house. She hears the car door slam and walks over to the window. Werner glances up at the house and sees her peeking out from behind a curtain, but he says nothing. Muller bangs on the door menacingly. When no one answers, he decides to shoot it off its hinge. Werner begs whoever you are up in the attic for forgiveness as the door creaks open. And I was like, damn. I have to wait to watch what happens. These fucking endings. They're so dramatic.
It's another one of those, oh God, it's hard to turn off Netflix.
I need to play the next episode.
Yes. Yes.
What did you think of the episode overall?
I thought the episode was well paced. I thought that they used the flashbacks well. You know, it wasn't a confusing mishmash. And so I appreciated, you know, how they utilized the pacing for this. I thought the performances were terrific. I'm really tired of crying during these episodes. I'm watching this, and I'm also watching Castaway Diva, and that show has me crying every single episode. So,
oh my God, but
yeah.
the picture of Netflix makes it look like it's a fun, jaunty show. Why are they lying to me?
It's a wonderful show. It's just poignant and heartbreaking at times. And yeah, but it is definitely very entertaining. It's very good. But anyway, back to this show. Anyhow, I enjoyed it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good sign when you're like, oh my God, I need to watch the next episode.
Yes. There's one niggling thought that keeps cropping up in my head is, why are the ratings so low for this?
Maybe people are just wrong.
I'm hoping that that's it.
When we're halfway through, I'm like,
yeah.
I'm more certain that people are just wrong.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's not okay, we get totally invested in this, and then it's like a seriously, what the fuck moment.
Like aliens come down.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're halfway through, and I feel like I've got a good grasp on what this show is now, and I don't feel like they're going to do something absolutely insane.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they might make Mark Ruffalo sing or something, but I don't know.
No, please no. Please no.
I mean, I thought, like, I really loved the backstories. They got really in-depth, but it was just as gripping as the stuff happening. in 1944. And, as always, the acting is spectacular. And the visuals are amazing. I mean, the visuals.
Yes. Oh,
the shot of the
it's
carousel
incredible.
on fire. Oh, my God. It's just a very...
of the soldiers, marching down the Champs-Élysées. I can, and I know that they didn't film in France, or at least this part wasn't done in France. I would be kind of horrified to see that happening again in France.
Anyway.
If I was there, oh my God, talk about flashbacks and trauma.
Last week, they filmed that in Budapest because everyone films in Budapest and pretends it's mid-century Europe. It could be anywhere. Yeah. But even Budapest has its own history with, oh my God, and a quite sizable Jewish population. So that must be really fucking creepy. It's creepy anyway, to be honest. Yeah. I just think some of the visuals of this show will stay with me for a long time, which is not always true of the shows we watch. Sometimes it's like the blandest direction possible. Sorry to these men who directed.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so last week we were talking about the audiobook. Have you started it?
No. Oh no. I have not started it yet. I haven't had the opportunity to, be out and about, running errands and things like that, so that I can have a good chunk of time to listen. But I am...
Christmas errands are coming up. What you wouldn't do is listen to a depressing Nazi story.
I should have done it while I was at Costco trying to get some medications put together for my father, because that would have probably calmed me down. But I am going to start listening to it tomorrow, just because I need to. I need to know if there are differences, if appreciable differences. And I know that I want to talk about it with you, and you're being gracious enough not to say anything so that you don't spoil anything. So I need to get caught up. How far along are you?
Marie-Laure has just arrived in Saint-Malo with her father in the flashbacks. Yeah, because the structure of the book is a little bit different, and it's slightly more chronological. I mean, it starts with the bombings and then goes into quite a lengthy flashback. Which, so it's not like two storylines happening at the same time as much as the show. But yeah, she's just arrived at Saint-Malo. So I'm sort of like at the start of episode 3. So that's like pretty good.
Okay.
I've been restraining myself because I knew.
Spoilers! Yes.
I think the most striking difference, and I don't think this is a big spoiler, is that in the novel, Daniel, Marie-Laure's father, leaves Paris. He and 2 other people are given the quote-unquote Sea of Flames. One person had it, but 2 people had copies. And so those people, they don't know who had the real stone. And there is a level of, plausible deniability for him. In the event that someone tries to steal it from him, he could be like, hey, I don't know if that's even the real one,
Right.
In the show, it's a bit different. He's the only person with it, which obviously works better on a TV show. I think the ambiguity of, hey, there's 2 other copies and, who knows, would be a bit hard to put in a TV show. But I think shit like that was actually quite common. Lots of people employed fraud, not frauds, but fake, to try and outwit the Nazis, because, they had a whole list of shit they wanted to steal from other countries. I think the show has simplified things in a way. They've stripped away some of the the nuance and the ambiguity because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's a much shorter time span. You're given a limited amount of time. There's only 4 episodes, and it makes sense to streamline things. Like, do you really need 2 other copies floating around? Like, that's just going to get fucking confusing later on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it works.
You gotta make it. Yeah, you gotta make it simpler to keep the plot moving for television.
Yeah, and things like Yuta, who was much more of a figure in the novel. Like, she's in like 2 scenes in the show, but obviously, he was quite close to his sister growing up, and we get a bit more in depth of their background. And I think they kind of changed her priorities. She was much more willing to challenge the Nazi state than she is in the TV show. But I think her role in the TV show is more to sort of highlight the danger Werner is constantly in, which is important because, you know, in the novel you can say, like, hey, all these things could happen to him, and you can get a whole paragraph of like all the different laws that were changed about radios. And I didn't know Nazi propaganda was so intense that they would literally kill you for listening to foreign broadcasts, but that was a thing.
Mean, that is a crazy thing.
Yep.
But you know,
really highlights the importance of a free press. But there we go. And you can do that much more in depth than you can in like a 4-part miniseries. You know, you just need your sister to scream at you, you could get killed, you know. That'll do it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, point taken. All right.
Well done.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The storylines that we have going on in this episode, primarily circling around both the year 1944 and 1940. 1944 San Malo. Von Rumpel and Marie Laur's escape. What did you think of that whole scene?
I mean, I loved that she beat the ever-living shit out of his head. I was
Me too. I
nearly did a whoop.
I was like, you hit him upside that head.
I was really worried for a second. Got a whole bunch of
sharp things down there.
I was like, oh my God, she's not breathing. Then obviously, that's insane. It's the beginning of the 2nd episode. Why was I worried?
Right. She's got to stick around for a while. So, you know that she's not going to wind up dying. But
at least not in the second
intensity. The intensity of that scene was breathtaking, and not in a good way.
No.
No. That was a terrifying scene. And I keep going back to the fact that she has never acted before. You know?
I think that makes her so much
holy crap
better because she doesn't feel artificial like some actors do. Like, this is all just, she's just doing this instinctually, and it feels real. But oh my God, how scary to be nearly drowned in your first job.
Yeah. It's just remarkable. I think she's phenomenal.
I love this character as well because so many times when you see girls in these situations, it's like, oh, how is she gonna girl boss her way out of this? But Marie always feels she never feels invincible. She feels like somebody who, you know, she's vulnerable, you know, and she's able to get herself out of these situations because she's really smart. And it's really satisfying to watch because so often, you know, they're either total badasses or women are damsels in distress. So it's like great to have someone who is neither. She's just a person trying her best. She happens to be much more intelligent than half the people around her because she has to be to survive without any, you know, like her father says.
Yeah.
Most people don't use half their senses because we have eyes, we become lazy. She's constantly like being alert and vigilant, and it paid off in that situation. So that's I was kind of like what the hell happened the next day? Why didn't Von Rumble come find her? Like, he just vanished. What's happening?
He's been concussed. He's already not feeling all that great. So after getting walloped upside the head, he's probably feeling pretty crappy.
He has enough morphine to deal with that. Come on.
Yeah, but too much morphine makes you stupid.
Makes you sleepy as well. That could be, he could be just sleeping it off, yeah.
Yeah. Werner being caught immediately.
Oh, God.
I liked that.
Yes.
I liked the fact that it wasn't this long, drawn out whodunity kind of thing and where did he go and that kind of thing. I like the fact that they said, no, we got you.
Yeah, I mean, we should be glad that he's not a sociopath that can cover up a murder, but I was also, like,
yes.
I'm a Slytherin. I was just like, mopping up the blood in front of the dude. Come the fuck on. That's disappointing.
And he's not a very good storyteller either. So I was like, dude, if you're gonna try and get away with this stuff, you're gonna have to come up with better lies than that.
Like, did you even try? This was like you had hours to come up with a better story than that. And also, this is like the best scenario for faking a murder. Not faking a murder, faking a death when you've committed a murder. Like, there's a whole war going on. Like, it'd be so easy.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it tells you he's a true Hufflepuff that, like, given all the advantages he had, he was still caught mopping up the blood on the floor.
Exactly.
I was like, why are you even cleaning up the blood? Like, just, there's loads of rubble everywhere. Just drag some of it on top of the blood stain. Come on. Why are you cleaning the floor? Oh, big Hufflepuff energy from Werner. He's too pure for this world.
Yes, indeed. I would agree.
I want to discuss Captain Miller, who initially struck me as somebody who wasn't like that important. Like, he was just the guy who gave them the radio. And now look, this is another case of where I find this character fascinating because the actor is just magnetic on screen. There's something about him. He gets the nuances of being menacing because he doesn't feel, I don't know, he just feels like a person that used to be fairly reasonable but has fully drunk the Kool-Aid, Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, sure, this kid committed a murder, but the mission's more important. So I'm just going to point a gun at him for 24 hours or whatever.
And make him my bitch.
Yeah.
I think that we could go on and on about the performances in this show. Everybody is committing full tilt at their roles, and Mueller is no exception. As you've mentioned, I think that he is not coming across as a one-dimensional villain, and he hasn't been on screen that much to have kind of fleshed out his character and who he is and, what his motivations are. So I'm totally impressed. I can't wait to see more.
I'm like, this is a weird thing that I never thought I'd say, but all of the men playing Nazis are doing really good jobs.
Yeah.
I think because when you imagine a Nazi, it's like pure evil. And I think it's really important that we remember these were actual humans with a lot of shit going on in their internal lives and loads of different reasons why they became who they became. And it's very important they're humanized.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that, they're getting a pass on what's happening because, ultimately they do have a choice.
Of course.
yeah, they do have a choice. But, it is, we talk about Snidely Whiplash a lot on the show. And I am glad that we are not seeing these male characters just, twirling their mustaches and going, Mwahaha. It's like there are complications existing within all of them. And it is very interesting from a psychological perspective to see how those things are navigating this world of World War II and Nazi Germany and fascism and the whole nine yards. It's very fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah. And
Good stuff.
I think all the flashbacks to the school really help flesh out how all these people became who they are. And it wasn't just, by accident. It was a whole machine in place to indoctrinate them and make them like the worst versions of themselves probably that they could be.
I know we're gonna dive into the scenes from the 1940s, and you mentioned the school. Holy cow, that was nuts.
And as we will go over in History Corner, incredibly accurate. So,
oh god, that was nuts. And the one young man who whispered to Werner, "Run!" Like, oh my god.
That's the friend that died in the first episode, and I was like, when I saw his little face, I was like, oh fuck, that's his only friend. His only friend died.
That was his friend. That was his friend.
Poor Werner.
And it was like, just run. Oh, but anyway, we're gonna get to to that in a minute.
Yes. I just want to highlight that I think everyone is doing amazing work, and I love that the show allows people to be complicated, and it's not just twirly moustache George Willuggan territory,
Yeah, exactly. So the invasion of Paris in 1940. Oh
my god, fucking scary. I mean, and like you said, I think what was so powerful about it was just seeing the visuals. Like, you see that many soldiers, you see all these gigantic flags, and everything made it feel terrifying. I think because a lot of World War II things that you watch either has really terrible CGI or has no budget, you don't really get the whole impact of like what it would feel like when you're standing there and thousands of soldiers are stomping down the Champs-Elysees, and you're just sort of stuck. It's unsettling. And as a visual, I think it was sensational, and don't like it. I was like, no. That doesn't look right.
Yeah.
It has the same impact. Have you seen the photos of Hitler on his little sightseeing tour around Paris? It's like the same as that.
Yes.
You're just like, that's not right. That does not look right.
The black and white film reels of the invasion of Paris and all of that, like, brought to living effing color, and terrifying to think about, the city that you live in, that you've loved, that is your home, suddenly becoming a place where if you don't get out, chances are you're not going to get out under your own steam. Either you're going to die, or they're going to pack you off in a railroad car and send you to your doom. Ugh.
It's just absolutely
chills.
This creepy as shit. And I think you always see it in black and white, which makes it feel really far away. Then when it's in color, you're like, oh, this wasn't really that long ago. Like, people were driving cars. Everyone was like, it was like an industrialized, very similar looking Paris to the one you can visit today. And it makes it fucking terrifying. Like, it's just scary to think you could just be walking down the street in Paris and then, oh shit, there's a Nazi. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think the scenes in the railway station also were accurate. Apparently there were so many people trying to escape that morning that panic ensued and they had to shut the gates, and then all the trains were cancelled because it was just absolute anarchy.
Oh my gosh.
Which makes sense, but it was also terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
And honestly, it reminds me a bit of, not to get political, but I'm absolutely going to, recently, the evacuation of Afghanistan, and we were watching the live images on the news of all those people trying to desperately flee the Taliban, trying to get on planes, and the American army shutting the gates to the airport. And it was it's like this shit still happens every time there is any kind of conflict. We just fucking panic, and it makes everything shut down even worse.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is impacting so vividly for me is, the time that we're living in is pretty frightening time. So, this stuff doesn't feel that far off from where we are now.
Well, it isn't.
And like you said, let's not get into politics, because we could go down a whole big old rabbit hole, and we don't want to do that.
There's a very big elephant in the room.
Great giant elephant is sitting on our chests. But I think that's one of the reasons why this show is so gripping, is that it's
still relevant,
hitting close to home.
Yeah, and it's all the shit that we're watching is still relevant to our lives.
Yeah.
I know like World War II in general doesn't, I mean, in America it's not really that relevant to your life, but in Europe, like, we still feel the effects of World War II like every fucking day. Like, so much of how society was structured after the events of World War II still impacts us today, and there's scars everywhere. And I think it's important that shows like this get made, because people really want to ignore history. They really want to pretend it's over, and it's just not. The legacy is still with us. So
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Marie Laure and her father's escape. Another incredibly dramatic, tension-filled sequence of events.
I mean, until they got in that car, then it was all like fun hijinks.
Yeah, then it was like party. It was like, it's time for a road trip, baby.
I was like, where are you going to get petrol? But okay.
Exactly.
It's like...
And I was, they're talking about listening to the radio, and I'm thinking to myself, my initial thought was, okay, the barn does not have any kind of electricity. But then it's like, oh, batteries, Michelle. Durr.
That's going to run out, though.
That's why it was so heavy. Batteries. But yeah, you're right. It'll run out. Everything's going to run out.
God.
You just can't bop down to the local 7-Eleven.
Too hard, because it doesn't really make any sense.
Yes.
I think they get the train in the book, which makes much more sense. But anyway.
Yeah, I bet. I loved their impromptu meal at the hotel.
That was so sweet.
That was very sweet.
They're such good people. You want to hang out with them. You'd be like, let's have a picnic in a barn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd make it more fun. I do have some questions about the whole... It'll come up in History Corner, but basically everyone knows that the Louvre and other, institutions in Paris were preparing for the war probably more than the French government. So to have them running around last minute packing stuff, I was like, that's not real, but okay. Loved the T-Rex being sent away. That was a visual.
Yes. Stuffed with all kinds of jewels.
It's going to be a very shiny T-Rex.
He's bedazzled. He's a bedazzled T-Rex.
Okay, Vanna and the school.
Petrifying. Oh.
I think it was the most powerful storyline of the episode for me, by far.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
and that's not only just because of Vanna's trauma, which was immense, but I think because, like we said earlier, it speaks to like a whole generation being brainwashed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Children, are always shitty to each other, but this was above and beyond. And the adults were encouraging and facilitating violence and cruelty and dehumanization and all these things that are just incredibly upsetting. And it's like a whole culture that did that. It wasn't just these children that were being made this way. They were doing this to the adult men as well. And oh my God, remember when the small children were like marching through in their underwear? Oh my God.
Yes. Oh, it's just horrifying.
I can't believe I'm about to say this on a podcast, but that's what makes me like think how, you question like how much power these people had to stop the crimes that they were committing, because they had been brainwashed since they were so young. It's like people in cults, that do horrible things to each other. You're like, you're brainwashed. You're like literally damaged so much that you're not really even able to make decisions for yourself. You just follow instructions. And I think people need to like study this. I feel like as a culture, we sort of just washed our hands of it and we're like, that's over now. I'm like, maybe these people need to be studied and psychoanalyzed so that we can prevent this happening again.
I know there were efforts to study this phenomenon, after it happened, that with Stanley Milgram's very famous study, where he was basically pretending to shock these people or having individuals shock another person who was acting. Yeah. And, an incredibly controversial study.
Yeah, there were some questions about his methodology, as always.
Massive questions about it. But the terrifying thing about human beings succumbing to the pressure to follow orders, it is not that difficult to get people to do that kind of thing, as much as we would like to say that it wouldn't happen because, humans are, made of sterner stuff and, that kind of thing. It's like, it doesn't take that much to push people over.
I mean, we've got a great example of that in this episode with Werner. Like how quickly he was like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to have to fucking kill her. Like you went from murdering for her to, oh God, well, my sister's in trouble, so I'm gonna shoot her. Yeah,
it doesn't take much. Now, what happens to that individual on the other side of that act?
Not good.
Is a whole nother thing to get into.
Weirdly, I'm going to talk about the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary that I watched, where he's famously Austrian. His father was a prominent figure in the Nazi party when he was younger. He was an early adopter of Nazism in Austria. And, he talks about how his father came back from the war as, on the losing side. And he was like, he was just like a foot soldier. And how broken and destabilized he was afterwards. Like, and everyone just accepted that this was normal. Like, there was a whole generation of men who were just walking around on the streets afterwards, like into the 50s and 60s, who were just completely emotionally unstable. And he became a drunk and he was very violent towards his family. And, it's like the violence that everyone inflicted on each other during the war became domesticated after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became accepted violence in the house rather than, he's not hurting other people on the streets, so it's okay. But it's like, okay, well, we've now failed so badly that all these children that were whose parents were Nazis are now getting abused. And so it's just like this is one of our favorite themes, generational trauma, because we don't deal with things as a society. People take it out on their domestic family, and women and children always
oh God,
the final victims.
Yeah, there is a reason it's called the cycle of violence.
It never ends. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's time for Rita's Unnecessary Historical Context Corner. We've all been waiting for it.
Yes. It's back with a vengeance.
Here we go.
So, before we begin, I needed a disclaimer. I hate World War II history. I just do. And I hate it because it's so often about things like who was the commander of what's-its-face and what specific model of tanks were they using during this battle. What strategies did they consider before they gave up and did this? Blah, 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 blah. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's really been really painful to research this, and I think I blame the media, not to sound Donald Trumpish, but your History Channel type shit that is mostly targeted at middle-aged men that often completely ignore the stories of women and children in the narrative. They just want to talk about, what if this commander had made a slightly different decision? Would the war be different? Who gives a shit? I'm more interested in civilians. I want to know what their experiences were like. But having said that, I'm now going to dump on everyone a bunch of very dry information and dates surrounding the invasion of Paris, because I think we need some context about how the process was both swift and very drawn out, as is the case with most war. Okay, so invasion of Paris. I could get into the weeds about all the forces that caused Germany's rampant militarization and empire building, but we don't have time. So let's start on the 1st of September 1939. Germany invades Poland. France and the UK declare war 2 days later on the 3rd of September after an ultimatum from German forces to immediately withdraw their forces was not answered. I mean, they didn't get a reply. They were left on red. Whoops.
Yes.
What followed was a period of inaction called the Phony War, or if you are French, Drôle de Guerre, where both sides started preparing for the oncoming war. Now, if you're not familiar with European geography, I highly recommend looking it up on Google Maps now. Go to Germany.
So you can follow along, kids.
On the 9th of May, 8 months after war was declared, Germany invaded Luxembourg. And Belgium and Netherlands soon followed. And after about 10 days of fighting, had occupied all 3 countries, which left France completely fucked. If you look at the map, the entire eastern border of their country was vulnerable to attack from either Germany or German allies. I'm looking at you, Italy. Sitting there quietly. The French High Command reeled from the shock of the German offensive and was overtaken by defeatism. On the morning of the 15th of May, again, the invasion had started on the 9th of May. We're not even 2 weeks later. French Prime Minister Paul Renaud telephoned Winston Churchill and said, "We have been defeated. We are beaten. We have lost the battle." Churchill, attempting to offer some comfort to Renaud, was like, "Hey, remember World War I? Which...
Come on, chin up!
Remember
chin
World
up, guys.
War I, when, most of French society was killed in a pointless war that destroyed and scarred the land forever? What a vibe, Churchill." Anyway, Renaud was inconsolable, understandably. Churchill flew to Paris and observed that the French government was already burning its archives and was preparing for an evacuation of the capital. Sounds defeatist. I always get really fucking annoyed when I see sitcoms that make fun of the French for like, giving up. I'm like, babes, 10 days.
It was coming.
10
days.
It
was coming. Yeah. It was coming and coming fast. Absolutely.
And this is not to say that there was an immediate capitulation. Fighting continued as Germany made inroads into northern France, but the French army was depleted, having spent a lot of its resources in trying to help Belgium and the Netherlands. Yeah, that didn't go well. They also had to deal with millions of civilian refugees fleeing the war in what became known as l'Exode, or the Exodus. See, in Paris, 3/4 of the population fled. Photographs and recollections from the time show roads encumbered with cars, bicycles and carts. I mean, I would suggest Google image searching. Just people with carts piled 10 foot tall in the air, piled with all the possessions they had gathered in haste. Panics spread through the population, from the upper classes to small shopkeepers, leaving the city almost deserted. As usual, the poorer you are, the less you were able to mobilize. So all the rich people got out of the city, and if you were poor, you were stuck. The flight was chaotic. People were hoping to get to family living in the Provences, their homes in the country, or just simply as far away as possible from the Germans. Between 6 and 10 million French people fled, sometimes so quickly they left uneaten meals on tables. So not only are you trying to fight a war, you're dealing with
you're doing it hungry.
10 million people like on the streets, just like moving around. That's absolute fucking chaos. You can't fight a war like that. So the Germans began their second offensive into France on the 5th of June, ironically on the Somme, and made steady progression down northern France. On the 10th of June, just 5 days later, the French government declared Paris an open city, and that means that it has abandoned all defensive efforts. Once a city has declared itself open, the opposing military will be expected under international law to peacefully occupy the city rather than destroy it. That's another thing that is often missed out of cruel jokes about the French surrendering. So on June 14th, the first German advance guard entered the city. By the end of the afternoon, the Germans had hung swastikas all over the Arc de Triomphe and organised military parades with a marching band on the Champs-Élysées. I think the marching band is a cruel jab.
Yeah. That is a middle finger. And when you think about it, this was less than 30 days after the prime minister called Churchill and said, "We've been defeated. Nazis are in Paris." That's how fast it went.
There was this quote that I read that, Winston Churchill was like kind of miffed at the French for not resisting more. And I can't remember who said it, but somebody was like, look, we're not going to like burn down the whole of fucking Paris. Like destroying Paris. That won't save France. Destroying Paris won't save France. So what's the point? And what they were doing was trying to keep a lot of people alive with their actions. Yeah. So
wow.
I believe in capitulation, apparently, but I felt a lot of sympathy for the French government in that situation. I would have been fucking terrified. Okay.
Yeah.
Cursed stones. So, it will surprise no one that the Sea of Flames is not a real stone, but it was inspired by a real one called the Delhi Sapphire, a real gemstone held in the Natural History Museum in London. The stone's recorded history begins with the Indian Rebellion of 1857. It was stolen from the Temple of Indra, which triggered the beginning of the curse. Dun, dun, dun. By the way, Indra in the Hindu tradition is the creator of the universe and the king of gods, so don't be fucking with him, y'all. He means business. Apparently, Colonel W. Ferris was in Bengal, and he was a cavalryman, and he stole the jewel and brought the stone back to England. He suffered huge financial and medical troubles. The gem was passed on to his son, who suffered the same fate as his father. Then the stone fell into the hands of a man named Edward Heron Allen. So British. He gave it to a friend who committed suicide, and then when it returned to him, he tried to pawn it. Everyone he sold it to complained about suffering misfortunes, so he couldn't get rid of it. Apparently, he took the gem and threw it into a canal. A few months later, it was presented to him by a dealer. Okay. Heron Allen then packed it inside multiple boxes and sent it away with a note warning that the sapphire should only be revealed 33 years from his death. According to the British Natural History Museum Forum, it was just a few months after he died in March 1943 that his daughter donated it to the museum. So.
Yeah, she's like, all right, you can have it. Bye.
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 It was handed over with a warning from Edward to not handle the armistice directly under any circumstance. Okay, you might have just noticed that I called it an armistice. It's not even a sapphire. You may be unsurprised to learn that Heron Allen was a huge bullshitter, and his entire cursed gemstone thing was actually just fabricated. The legend is bullshit. It gave credence to it. He just did it because he had a short story he wanted to sell. He wrote it in 1921. It's called The Purple Sapphire. Yeah, he's a writer, guys. Lies, all of it lies. And the way the purple sapphire wasn't even a sapphire is the absolute thing that kills me. There's just no such thing as curses, and this is all a lie. Don't believe men. Men are liars. Okay. I would like to formally apologise to the German language before I begin. Okay, so military schools. So Werner attended Schupfurter, a real school still operating today. You can Google it. It looks fairly benign, which was a National Polish Erziehungsanstalt. I tried. I'm going to call it NPEA from now on. So the NPEAs, and there were 37 in all, were special boarding schools in Nazi Germany. They were founded as community education sites after the Nazi seizure of power. The main task of these MPEAs was the, quote, education of National Socialists, efficient in body and soul for the service of the people and the state, end quote. The pupils attended these schools were meant to become future leaders of Germany, political, administrative, and, of course, militarily. During the war, they increasingly developed into prep schools for entry into the army and SS. So, the Napoleons were largely modelled on English schools, such as Eton and Harrow. This is the detail that I absolutely loved. Oh my God, it tastes delicious. They were seen as character-forming role models. The British school had been educating the rulers of the centuries-old British Empire, and the Napoleons should train the rulers of the 1,000-year Reich, apparently. The Napoleons were more effective at indoctrinating pupils politically than organisations such as Hitler Youth. Children attended from a younger age and mixed little with other children. Due to the highly militaristic nature of the Nazi regime, life at the MPEAs were dominated by military discipline. Only boys and girls considered to be racially flawless were admitted to the schools, and no children with poor hearing or vision were accepted. Quote, above average intelligence, end quote, was also required, so that those looking to be admitted had to complete 8-day entrance exams. Life in boys' Napolas, I don't know how you say that, was highly competitive. even brutal. It was extremely hard to get in and nearly as hard to stay. Approximately 1/5 of all cadets failed to meet the required standards or were sent home because of injuries sustained and training accidents. God, can you imagine? Napola students were intensely political, deliberately working to make their cadets fervent believers in the Nazi regime and its ideology. This is reflected in the percentage of students who eventually entered the SS. 13%, much higher than the 1.8% of the general German population. The Nazi worldview was considered paramount in their education. A prominent belief among the cadets themselves was that the Endsieg, or final victory. This came into play as Germany's fortunes fell into a decline from which they would never recover. The Nazi leadership increasingly scraped the bottom of the barrel for manpower. The privileged students of the Napola schools were mobilized in the final months of the war, serving as poorly equipped and minimally trained but highly motivated infantry. Armed with little more than blind fanaticism, they nonetheless offered fierce resistance in many battles in the last months of the war. Casualties among them were extremely high. Very accurate to what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah, very much so.
Van is one of the last people left.
Thank you for doing that. Makes me respect the writer even more for their accuracy, you know?
You don't have to lie to find interesting stories about World War II,
No,
that's for sure.
you don't. Mm-mm.
People are fucking crazy, is what I'm learning from all this. Between the guy making up a fake curse to sell some short story nobody wanted to read and whole schools set up to indoctrinate children we're just insane.
That's just nightmare. Oh my gosh. So,
this is why dogs should be running the world. I firmly believe that. I believe in dogs.
So, favorite characters and performances. I think we've talked a bit about them at the earlier part of the show, but
you got to choose one though.
Yep, you got to pick one now.
I'm always tempted to say Lewis Hoffman because
you are a sucker for this man.
He's very talented. He's just very good. That one shot of him, you know, when he's being driven around the town and there's that extreme close-up of his face and there's like a tear starts forming and you're like, oh God, so good. I mean, you know, it's a testament to how good his acting is that, you know, there's all this scenery in the background and they've chosen an extreme close-up.
Yeah. It reminded me of, you know, Denzel Washington's single tear in Glory.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Denzel Washington definitely
my God.
got an Oscar because of his single tear. So, same level.
Yeah. Yep.
I also want to shout out the guy who plays Muller. His name is Jakob Dial. Yeah, sorry to the Germans. Sorry to everybody, really.
We just keep apologizing.
He's just very magnetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that he really won me over this week. Not that, you know, I had anything against him, you know, last week. I could see just the potential. I got what it is that you've been talking about.
Yay. I'm going to get you to watch Dark. I'm not sure when. Do you know, every time I log into Netflix now, it's like, do you want to watch Dark again? And I'm like, yes, but I can't until Michelle watches it. So that's the...
Well, I am taking time off for the holidays, so you never know.
Look, if you watch Dark, message me immediately.
Oh, of course.
We're going to binge watch it together.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And then you can be as creeped out as I was because that show is wild. Also, like, just by watching... Actually, that's not true. So, between The Empress, I do like Dark. I did watch 1899. And this show, Netflix is like, you like German TV. and now when I log in, it's just all German. Babes.
Oh.
It's just a coincidence.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. Yeah, I think that he was particularly striking this week. And I honestly I can't wait to watch the next episode.
Just going to be acting.
Yes.
With an capital A, you know.
Yes. Like, acting.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Favorite scene.
Favorite scene. I would have to say it was the scene of Marie and her father in the barn. That scene together. It was after an hour of truly harrowing television. Those moments in the barn were like a breath of fresh air that I desperately needed.
Yeah, I'm so glad the show has chosen to have those moments of levity because you fucking need them. Everything is so depressing. And I think it's also important to remind people that real life happened amongst the war. You know, people were still doing their normal everyday shit and still like making jokes and hanging out with their dad in a barn.
Yeah.
Just a casual.
Yeah.
I chose, by contrast, a really horrible scene.
Oh dear.
You know, the scene where the boys were chasing Vanna in the woods.
Oh, God.
And it went to slow motion, and then there was the voiceover. I mean, the first time I saw that, I was like, I gasped. I was like, this is cool. Is not the reaction you're supposed to have, but I just love, the visuals, just the contrast between what was happening to him and the banal nature of his letter. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
I was just like, I love this.
It was
like,
it was so really cool well done. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, and I can still hear the thumping of the feet on the ground. The show's done a really good job with its audio.
Yes.
Which, is really important, obviously, because they're depicting obviously a visually impaired woman, so you know, they've got to make the audio good. I hope that the audio description is also good for it's really ironic that the best depiction of a blind girl and the people who will really understand it can't see it, you know. So the audio description better be good.
Yeah.
I've really noticed the audio this episode was it was very distinct. That moment where the door shuts of the Jeep and, you know, Marie hears it, you're like, oh, suddenly it's like your senses are heightened watching her. Yeah. They do a good job with that. Okay, favorite costumes.
You know, it's been really difficult for me to really pay that much attention to the costumes. I know it's like sacrilege for us here at In the Books Central to be kind of like costumes. What costumes? Huh?
I mean, it's mostly military uniforms.
Yeah.
What you want us to say?
Yeah. You know, I think that I don't have anything to complain about.
That's always a good start. I think the only striking look was Seidler's wife.
Yes.
Because it was just the luxury. And also foreignness. That woman is in her head to toe Parisian fashion, reading her little French magazine, listening to her foreign radio.
Yes.
And I thought they did a really good job of contrasting her and her life with that of, you know, your austere German typical dress. You know, you don't see Frau Elena out there rocking the green silk.
No,
do you?
No, not at all. You know, and you know, and the wife is, of course, everything that is verboten in society, you know?
What is it that Seidler called the French. He was like, they're very like frivolous or something. And I was thinking, like, look who you're
It's
married
like, hello, hello, sitting on the couch over there, right there.
And I love that because, like, it's another illustration of, like, this man, I don't think believes any of the bullshit.
No.
He doesn't.
No.
I mean, when they ask what the boy is, he's like, a boy. You know, he's not drunk the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So he's definitely somebody who's just riding this out because he can get rich and he can be in a position of power. And you've got to ask, hey, is that worse or is that better? And it's like, maybe neither. We can't say.
Yeah.
But it's important to have like different levels of brainwashed in this show to remind everyone, like, hey, not everybody's the same, and different people. Some people were just being conniving, taking an opportunity when they saw one, which is depressing. But,
yeah.
He got a cool house out of the brutality of the situation. Yeah.
Go you.
Didn't he make a joke about like the Jewish woman's gripping onto the gates of the house or something?
Yeah, it
like
was
that, man. Fuck you, man.
Yeah, it was just like, oh God, you're a pig.
Like he's just like, okay, yeah, you got a house. I see the appeal of playing the game because you got a house, but like,
man,
God, you have no soul.
No.
Yeah.
Locations.
Okay, firstly, everything looks amazing. I think it was like that final scene where they're like driving around the town and they pulled up to the house that I finally noticed like how beautiful that house is. Like it's just like a perfect example of how French rustic charm, you know, this is like how you imagine houses look there.
Yes.
B, like as someone who's been to, you know, the north of France a lot because it's very close to the south of England. Like that's where school trips go. It was striking, you know, having been to Brittany and Normandy and most of northwest France in general, there's very few of those types of buildings left. They got the shit bombed out of them.
Yeah.
And places like, look up the pictures of Calais after they were bombed. You know, people make jokes about how ugly that part of France is now. And it really like struck home to me watching this. I was like, yeah, it doesn't look like that now. And now I fucking realize why. Like I never put two and two together. Like it was destroyed. Like there was very little of it left. Very few places had the kind of money. Like Saint-Malo was reconstructed in the 60s. You know, it took them a long time to reconstruct because they simply didn't have the money post-war. But a lot of places just didn't bother. They built some really ugly, like brutalist shit instead. So it's watching this show made me realize something about a place that I'd been to a lot and like never put two and two together. It seems really obvious. It's worth seeing things to
understand. Yeah, to make you think.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that, you know, living here in the States where, you know, our history is still so young.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's hard for us to kind of get that same perspective. You know, unless you're a big Civil War or Revolutionary War fanatic. And like
tend
that
to be highly racist, and,
you know, and like that history and that kind of thing. You know, and me, little West Coast girl here, you know, I don't have that same connection to how history has scarred, you know, our places and locations. And so, you know, it's when you wind up going and visiting England, you know, and it's a city that's over 1,000 years old. That just kind of makes you kind of stop and think, holy crap, so many things went into making England what it is, because so much history has happened in that space. I think the same is true with with Europe. I think that I'm always, when I'm watching period television shows, the locations are always just breathtaking. I wish I had the same kind of experience that you had, in seeing this show and making that connection that, what you've experienced ain't like what we're seeing in the show, because war be bad.
Yeah. I don't, yeah. And it's funny, like, I needed this show to tell me this, because I think sometimes if you do live among history all the time, you're not even aware or conscious of it. Yeah. It's just like, hey, I'm walking down the street. Like, the school I went to was founded before America was quote unquote discovered. Yeah. Like, shit like that. Yeah. That it's just like every day I'm in a really historical part of, and it becomes normalized, so you don't even think about it. I think sometimes it's better to be an outsider because you can see things and more clearly and see like how this isn't normal. Maybe pay attention to some of the things around you occasionally, Rita. But I would recommend, like, if anyone listening has a chance to visit that part of France, I think it's so important to do that. I'm so glad that my school forced me to go so many times. Because you will just be like, I remember we stopped at like a rest stop, I guess, in American. And like next to the building where we were all going to like pee and stretch our legs, there was a massive crater from like World War One. Wow. And it's just everywhere, like the physical scars on the land. People will like have a farm and they will farm around the massive hole.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yep. They don't want to fill it in because you also don't know if like there's any...
Yeah. If there's any ordnance in there.
And they're still finding pieces of old mines and shit from over 100 years ago.
Yikes.
Like, it's just... can you imagine, like, not only did the First World War happen there, but then the Second
World War happened, yes.
Very specific bit of land. And obviously there have been lots of other wars there before as well, but, because of the industrialized nature of these two wars, like, the scars are just everywhere. And there's also, like, unfortunately, a lot of very remote, like, you wouldn't even expect there's just graveyards everywhere. You will be in the middle of nowhere and like, oh yeah, there's like a Canadian graveyard. Oh my, from World War One, there's like 500 people buried here. Put up some headstones. And it's just in the middle of nowhere, and you don't even know that it's there, and there's like hundreds of them littered around the countryside. Wow. So it must be like really... I wonder if the people who live there have just become used to it. Like, yep, that's where we live. There's dead bodies everywhere.
Okay, anything you didn't like?
Mark Ruffalo's voice.
Oh my God! I wish they just said, Mark, yo, dude, just you be you, okay? Don't try to be British for the sake of all that's holy.
I'm not insane. It did get worse, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It got worse.
Yeah.
I thought it was bad last week, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Especially because he kept talking to British people, so it was more striking.
Yes. And I think, because we had more of him, I think, in this episode, we just had more of the voice, which didn't help matters either.
I don't want to feel mad at Mark Ruffalo, but it's got to the point now where I'm like, Han, get away, get off my screen. I can't handle this anymore.
I love you, but stop. Please stop.
It's not acceptable. Like, you're
Yes.
a grown man doing this voice for money.
It's like, you need to stop now. Oh, you big.
It's really frustrating. It's really stopping the show being perfect. I'm like, ugh.
Maybe that's why it got such bad ratings. I don't know.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Oh, gosh. So how many Sea of Flames out of 5?
I'm tempted to give it 4.5 just for the accent.
Just for the accent, yes.
5.
Yeah, same here. The episode was just crisp, riveting, and I can't wait to watch number 3. Mm-hmm.
I want to mention this. It was 51 minutes long. That is the perfect length of an episode. I'm tired of these overly long. Bridgerton, I'm looking at you. If
now,
you can't edit it down, make it into another episode.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. Have you, speaking of which, have you looked into the run length of the remaining 2 episodes? Do we have any frightening revelations to come?
I will go on Netflix immediately because now you've panicked me. 1 hour and 2 minutes, 53 minutes.
Okay, not too bad.
So, no, because this show has an intro, and some of that will be credits, so it will really be more like 56 or something. Some of us have poor bladders, okay, and tiny attention spans, and we cannot.
Yes. Okay, it's inbox time.
Ooh.
Hi, Rita and Michelle. Seems like an eternity since I listened to your lovely dulcet tones, because it has been. I binge watched this series whilst overseas recently, but I've decided to watch it again as it was such a blur, time zones and all that. I'm so confused as to why this hasn't got better reviews, especially considering some of the stuff that does. I can appreciate... Yes. I can appreciate there are some issues, e.g. Teddy Bear Gruffalo's appalling accent. What is that exactly? And the over-exaggerated, grotesque, and psychotic German officer who's trying to find Marie. But overall, though, I think it's quite a lovely miniseries. Things I do like about it. It looks beautiful, filmed with great clarity and color, but most of all, I like the essence of the characters. Werner. All he was trying to do was listen to the radio. He is just trying to protect his memory of hope and beauty during such horrendous times, but there's nothing like a gun pointed at your head to sharpen your focus. Now, how does his soft, caring soul cope with it all? I guess we find out soon in episode 3, when we will be forced to face Marie, the voice he has wondered about, and with the Nazi officer.
Oh, will he? I still think she's going to get out of that attic. I don't know how.
I do too. She's a wily one.
Maybe she'll climb on the roof. I don't know.
Yeah, she's a wily one. Matron. She genuinely cares and loves her charges in the orphanage. Her words to Werner as he's being abducted by the Nazi officer to go to the Hunger Games-styled school are trying to make him feel special because he is so clever and he is to be commended, but her eyes and tears tell us the truth and fear of what this really means. Goodbye. His poor sister, hearts breaking everywhere. Great scene. By the way, the sister is cool. I like how she boxes his ears.
Oh, I love that. I also love that he was like, oh my God, you're really strong.
I know. Oh, Marie. She is sweet and naive, but I guess that's what we expected. I have some questions about the storyline. Could she have survived all this time completely alone as a blind girl with bombing raids in the top attic floor and dwindling support from people? Yeah, good question. Development of this would have been good. I don't know if that info has been left out of the movie version. I think the actress does a great job, given she has not acted before, but I am not completely there yet with her character. Anyway, just a short analysis from me. Ciao, ciao, Maria in Australia. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, Michelle and Rita. I'm enjoying this series. The actress that plays Marie is amazing. I loved every scene that she is in. Also, Hugh Laurie as Uncle Etienne was also amazing. Loved Werner, and he would do anything to protect Marie. Von Rumpel is so creepy.
Yes.
I know, that's why I love him. He's great. I loved Mark Ruffalo as Marie's father, but he wasn't as compelling as Marie or Etienne. I didn't like his accent during the club. Was it a British accent? Question mark?
No frickin' idea.
No, well, I know it wasn't British. I don't know. Yeah, obviously he was aiming for that.
It was about as British as Kevin Costner's accent was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I have massive respect for Kevin Costner not even trying. He knew
He tried at the beginning. And then he was just like bailed on it. He was like, all right, I'm done. He was
just like, fuck it. I'm like Canadian or something. I don't know. And everyone, yeah. Also, doesn't that have what's his face in it? What's his face is not very accurate.
Christian Slater didn't
try either. Like, everyone was just like, this is my accent, apart from Morgan Freeman, who was the only one that could act, potentially. Yes. Morgan Freeman was out there.
He was doing the things.
Marvellous job, Morgan. Everyone else just showed up and he was acting. We've got wildly off track, but we should cover that because that's one of my favourite movies.
Yeah, it is delightful.
It's the most fun. Werner's backstory was sad. Yeah. He was taken from the orphanage and his sister to train with the Germans because of his radio expertise. I was crying when he said goodbye to his sister.
Yeah,
the ending of episode 2 was so exciting because Werner didn't want to give Marie's position, but he didn't want the Nazis to kill his sister. I hope he kills the Nazis before they get to Marie.
Me too.
I mean, they took his gun. What's he going to kill them with? The radio? Actually,
his
the radio's
bare
quite
hands.
heavy.
Bare hands.
I can't wait to see what happens in the next series. Also, I can't wait to hear your podcast on episode 2. Delia from Austin. Delia.
Thanks, Delia.
You, but I don't think we're getting a next series. This is a mini-series.
Yeah.
The whole appeal of this, for me, was it'll be done. I love a mini-series.
Oh, man.
My theory, you don't want to hear my theory, because I have absolutely no idea what happens next. As I told you, I have no memory. But I think Von Rumpel has gone suspiciously quiet. He's not going to allow them to kill Marie.
No, he can't.
But he doesn't know where she lives.
Yeah.
So that's also...
We will have to see.
He's going to put his German Nazi uniform back on and play it being whatever rank he is. I don't even know. But he seems... Do you think he's higher up than Muller?
I sense that the two of them are about on equal footing.
This is about the time that he would pop up and be like, surprise, bitches. I need Marie to tell me where that stone is so you can't kill her. Anyway.
So what is happening in the next episode? It says, after earning Etienne's trust, Werner opens up about his haunting past and his ties to shortwave 1310.
What? He's going to be
Daniel
Etienne.
goes to... I know. Daniel goes to great lengths to trick the Gestapo.
That's got to be a flashback, hasn't it?
That has flashback written all over it.
Okay, important question. Do you think Daniel's dead?
I hope not.
That sounds like a woman who thinks he's dead.
But...
with the kind of disappointment of, I think he's a bit dead.
Yeah, I hope not, but I have a feeling that it'll be a better story if he is dead. And that's the writer in me.
Yeah, I see. I think he's dead. Because honestly, don't you think it would be like the ultimate, like, coming of age? And now she's also an orphan and Werner's an orphan and they have to make their own way in the world without the hindrance of her father's weird gemstone thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did. R.I.P. But also maybe a bit better for the show so that we don't have to listen to his accent in the present.
Ouch! Oh, but yeah, I think he's gone.
Bye-bye.
So maybe we'll find out next time.
Oh, that's going to be episode 4 material, of course. Okay, thank you for joining us in this ramble fest of a podcast. We'll be back soon with our podcast on episode 3. If you want to be read out in the inbox feature, you can email us at inthebooksnetwork@gmail.com and follow us on social media at inthebooksnetwork for more fun period drama takes from us. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.